If you've ever lost everything you loved and wondered why life turned its back on you, then this story will speak straight to your soul. Because sometimes, what feels like punishment is actually preparation. Long ago, in a quiet countryside, wrapped in golden sunlight, there lived a man named Michael. His name was spoken with admiration in every corner of the valley. He was rich, not just in gold or land, but in pride. His barns were filled to the brim. His fields shimmered with ripe grain. His servants obeyed his every command, and his house, a mansion of stone and wood, stood high on a hill, as if even it refused to bow to the earth. But for all his wealth, Michael's heart had grown hollow. When the villagers thanked God for the rain, he said, "Rain, that's my irrigation work." When they praised the harvest, he smiled proudly and said, "That's my hard labor." And when an old priest once told him, "Michael, all that you have is by the grace of God," he laughed and replied, "Grace? No, Father, I am my own grace." That night, thunder rolled across the sky, a sound so deep it shook his windows. But Michael didn't pray. He just turned away, convinced that nothing in heaven could ever touch what he had built on earth. He was wrong. The next morning, dark clouds hung low. A strange wind swept through the valley, heavy and still, as though the world was holding its breath. Then, in a single night, everything changed. Lightning struck the edge of his field, setting the dry stalks ablaze. The fire spread faster than the rain could fall. By dawn, his crops were ash. His barns had collapsed. Thieves took what was left, and his servants fled into the night. When Michael awoke, his world, his pride, his power, his possessions, was gone. He fell to his knees in the smoldering ruins of his land and cried out, "Why, God, why would you take everything from me?" But the heavens gave no reply. Only the wind whispered softly through the smoke, as if carrying away his cries. That was the day Michael began a different journey, not one of wealth, but one of awakening. Michael wandered for days, barefoot and broken. His hands, once soft from counting coins, were now blistered from picking scraps of wood. His clothes, once fine linen, were torn and stained with dust. The villagers, who once bowed before him, now turned their faces away. He was no longer the man they admired, just another wanderer, lost and forgotten. One afternoon, as the sun burned low and red, Michael stumbled upon a small clearing near the edge of the forest. There sat an old carpenter mending a broken chair beneath a lonely tree. His hands were rough, his beard silver like winter frost. He looked up at Michael and smiled gently. "You look tired, traveler. Come sit." Michael hesitated. No one had spoken kindly to him in weeks. He sat down and drank the water the old man offered. After a long silence, Michael said, "I had everything. Land, servants, gold. And now I have nothing. Tell me, old man, why would God punish me like this?" The carpenter's hammer paused mid. He looked at the broken chair and said quietly, "Perhaps God did not take from you. Perhaps He's making you." Michael frowned. "Making me into what?" The carpenter smiled, pointing to the piece of wood in his hands. "See this? It was once part of a mighty tree, strong, proud, towering above the forest. But when the storm came, it broke. Now, I carve it anew, not to make it taller, but to make it useful." Michael stared at the man, unsure how to respond. But something about those words stayed with him, echoing in the hollow places of his heart. Days turned into weeks. Michael began helping the old man, fetching water, chopping wood sanding planks. At first, he did it just to survive. But over time he started to enjoy it. He learned that every strike of the hammer, every stroke of the blade carried purpose. The carpenter never rushed. He worked patiently, humbly, and always with gratitude. One evening, as the two of them sat by the fire, Michael asked, "Don't you ever wish for more? For comfort? For wealth? For recognition?" The old man smiled, his eyes reflecting the flames. "I once did. I prayed for riches, fame, and glory. But God in His mercy gave me only enough to live, because He knew too much would destroy me. And now I see peace is better than plenty." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He thought about his old life, the golden plates, the grand halls, the applause, but none of it had ever brought him peace. For the first time in his life, Michael whispered a prayer. Not for riches, not for success, but for strength to understand why God had taken everything away, Monspa said. The once proud lord had become a humble craftsman. His hands, once symbols of power, now bore calluses of purpose. One crisp morning, he woke before dawn and walked to the hill overlooking the valley, the same hill where his mansion once stood. But now, where ashes once lay, he saw green sprouts breaking through the soil. Tears filled his eyes. He sank to his knees and whispered into the wind, "Now I see, my lord. You didn't destroy me. You stripped away my pride so I could see you. You took my possessions so I could find my purpose." And in that moment, a soft breeze brushed against his face. Not fierce, not cold, but gentle, like the touch of grace. Michael smiled through his tears. For the first time, he felt peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from having everything, but the unshakable peace that comes from understanding why you lost it. He never rebuilt his mansion. He never sought his wealth again. Instead, he stayed in the valley, helping the poor, teaching them to rebuild what they'd lost, not just with their hands, but with their hearts. So remember, my friends, sometimes God breaks you down not to punish you, but to rebuild you stronger, humbler, and closer to Him. When you lose everything, remember it might just be the beginning of becoming everything you were meant to be. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more timeless tales and life-changing lessons, because every story here is meant to remind you your pain has a purpose.